Hi. Hello. Woo. Oh, that's fun. Hello. Welcome to the Club Sesh. Welcome to the Edibles Club Sesh. We made it. It's Wednesday. Hi, Alex. Hi, Madam Dram. Welcome. JL Sanders. Hello. Make sure my mic is on. It's on today. Good job. At the Priest Studio. Welcome. Ciao, Kathy. Hi, Fraggle Rock. Michelle is here. Gang's all here. Drink some water. Stay hydrated. Chicano Juarez. Boop. Hi, everyone. Oh, it's hot today here in LA. But we're having a, Bonbon and I still went for our walk. We made it work, even though it's super hot. She did not want to go for a long one, though, today. She was like, nope, let's go home. Too hot for her. I needed to leave at like 7 a.m. to take her because it's so... Once it hits 8 o'clock here now, and it's only going to get worse. Hi, Enlo. How's it going? Or great, depending on how you see it. Some people really like hot weather. I do. I prefer warm weather to cold, but... I don't know where she is. She's definitely not sitting on her little bed today. It's okay. She does what she wants. So today, Club, just in case you didn't know, what the title of our sesh is today, Cooking the Books, How Weed Funds the System That Excludes It. I'm your host, Vanessa Lavarado, if you didn't know, in case this is your first time here. I am also the head, whatever you would want to call me, for our Patreon, the Edibles Club. I'm going to drop that right here in the chat. Okay, so we've got this right here. Also, my friends, you can join that if you want to come and hang out with us in the club. Hi, Pete81. We have a great group chat. Also, I just want to say thank you, everyone who's been ordering my cookbook, How to Eat Weed and Have a Good Time. I can see how it's doing basically on Amazon, because most people are ordering through Amazon, which is which is fine. You know, I'm not going to judge you. I'm happy to have whatever support, you know. Why is it doing this? It's being so annoying. I want to put them both in here. So this is, if you haven't ordered my cookbook yet, what are you waiting for? Basically. Hi, Petra. Petra's in the house. Hi, Harry Lee. Okay, I also want to announce here, Alex says hot weather can ruin the outdoor adventures in the canyons and forests. True. I try not to smoke in the forest. California doesn't need me to take any risks right now. Make sure you're not using anything fire related in the forest. Anyway, in California. The book, so you can go to Simon & Schuster's website here, and the book is at like Barnes & Noble. I want to know, actually. This will be interesting. I'm curious. Be honest. I can't tell what your answer is. So this will be interesting to me. Okay, okay. Because I want to see if anyone, basically see how many people haven't ordered my cookbook yet. 100% yes. Well, you never know. There could be one or two, and I'm going to try and convert you. I'm sorry. See, there are some people who haven't ordered it yet, and that's okay. But I will say, please do. It really, really, really impacts my life. Basically, whether or not I get to write more books is based on how well this book does. And everything is against me, right? Everything. My publisher can't put a big banner up on Amazon because of the content and the title of the book. Television shows won't have me come on and do a little cooking demo for them because it's cannabis and they don't want to piss off like their advertisers, right? It's not that they're necessarily against cannabis. It's that their advertisers don't agree with it. Like I did a whole podcast and they didn't air the podcast because they're sponsored by Nestle, and Nestle doesn't want anything to do with cannabis. So I am really in your hands, people, like you. It's up to us to like spread the word and to, thank you, Petra, to get people to request, request the book. I saw Toronto Public Library. The library in Toronto has a copy of How to Eat Weed and Have a Good Time, which is really cool. So I'm just trying to level with you in that, see, look at, there are 40, what is that? 32% of you haven't ordered my cookbook. And there's 26 people here supposedly right now. That's about, a little over 30%. So that would be about 10 people. Do you know what 10 people ordering my cookbook would do? It would boost my numbers drastically. I think that people, you know what? I understand that, Fraggle Rock, but I have to sell books. So I need to sell, I don't know what I have to do to tell people like this book, I'm curious if you haven't ordered my cookbook. What is it? Financial reasons, or you just fuck that? I don't need another book in my life. I've got too many things. I don't like the cookbooks I already have. Maybe you don't trust me. I ran so many lab tests for this cookbook, and I could have run more. I love running lab tests, but this book doesn't exist. When I started, it does now, but it didn't exist. When I started making edibles, I wished that this book existed because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I had to figure it out the hard way. And dispensary chains, yeah. But then Natalie, like, it's literally, I have tried. I've reached out to them. I've reached out to dispensaries in California. it's me I have to email them all, which is thousands, and they don't respond. None of them respond to emails. I've sent them. I've spent days emailing them. I've gotten no response. So at that point, I'm just like, fuck this. I did a book talk at Now Serving Chris O. I did. Yes, I did. Very grateful to Now Serving LA. They're great. They have signed copies. If you would like a signed copy, I can put that in the chat too. But basically, the dispensaries don't respond. They are carried right now at Cornerstone Wellness has them. And my book publisher, like, their distribution methods aren't really, like, they don't have a network of dispensaries. So they would have to go and do what I'm doing, and they're not going to do that. So it's, I've had these ideas like, oh, I'll get them into dispensaries. And then you go and you start contacting these dispensaries and you get zero response, right? And I don't blame them. They're like, who the hell are you? Alex, please trust me, they don't respond. They just don't respond. If you want a signed copy, here you go. Anyway, I'm not asking for advice on like how to get them into more stores. I have a whole publisher with a sales team who's doing all of that. They're at Barnes and Noble. They are at like they are accessible to people. So it's not like it's an issue of access. It's an issue of, I think people just I don't know, wanting another cookbook. And it's not that it's doing poorly. It's doing, people are buying it. But like the Bon Appetit cookbook is selling more than my cookbook. So Pete 81, I live in a prohibition state. Trying to figure out edibles on my own was a nightmare. I wish I would have had that book. I hope you have it now. But yeah, I mean, even in a state like California that's been relatively legal for a long time, there was no information online. And even now the information online is very like all over the place. This book really breaks it down. So you don't have to question, well, how long do I need to infuse butter and at what temperature and what about other oils and how long does it take to decarb? Are there any other methods for decarboxylation? And it goes into it. And I wrote it for all of you so that you wouldn't have to be like me trying to guess at how to do this shit. And I just got sick of people not being able to tell me how to do stuff. How long does it take to do something? And I remember just like seeing all of these articles that or recipes, even in the Bon Appetit cookbook, that would tell you to spend hours making butter or something. And then when I did the lab testing. Hi, Pete, how's it going? It doesn't take that long. So I'm just trying to save everybody time and save people from being cookie casualties. So anyway, what we're going to talk about today is not the book, although it's very interesting. 67%. I hope the people who responded that they haven't gotten my cookbook yet, I really hope you will get it. It really means a lot to me. It helps me do what I'm doing. It also helps me be able to write more books so I can do more science on cannabis. So we can, if you want more cannabis cookbooks and more books in general, when you go to pitch, when you have your proposal for a book, a big part of it's the comps, right? So you can say, hey, this cannabis cookbook sold really well because there's a market for it and people are interested in this kind of information. If people don't go and buy the book and support that kind of research and education with their dollars, then the publishers, they won't make them. And then we get more nothing. So, hi, Lindsay. How's it going? I'm telling people to get my cookbook. how to eat weed and have a good time. I'm actually going to pin it. And also, if you want, like, I know it's bad, but it's not bad. Listen, you get it however you need to get it, okay? The cookbook is also on Amazon, and which means like you can get it all over the world, right? So, and I know there are members all over the world. So let me put that in there. Get rid of this. Go away. Copy link. You must buy it. Okay. So, and then here's the Amazon link. Okay. And you can get it there. I actually do get a little commission from Amazon. So thanks, Lindsay. I agree. I do think it's revolutionary. And speaking of revolutionary, today we are going to talk about taxes. I know that doesn't actually sound that interesting, right? Like, oh my God, why are we talking about taxes? Boring. But it's not boring. It's going to be very informative. If you're interested in getting into the cannabis industry, then this is a good show for you. We're going to talk about taxes policy. I just posted a little video on Instagram. I actually just want to take a look and see what it's saying. Let's see. Are people engaging with this post? Because I want people, yes. Come to New York. How high were you during this? You know, when people ask me that, it's like, what do you want from me? What do you want? I'm stoned. Okay. Whatever. Hi, Stuart. Okay. Let me get back to our focus right now. So I wanted to look at, first of all, we're going to start with a little bit of history. Okay. So let's start by exploring how food and consumables, is what we'll call them, have historically been used as tools for taxation and control. Okay. Cannabis isn't the first thing to be taxed up the ass. So we're going to look at salt tax. All right. Let's look at how in ancient civilizations like China and France, salt taxes were significant revenue resources and led to the events like the French Revolution. Okay. People don't like taxes. And let's look into this. Oh, wait. Where's my videos? Bum, bum, ba-dum. Wait, where did we go? Oops. Sorry, you guys. I'm trying to find all of my links in here. I'll put it in here. Salt tax. And then we have to go to our new screen. Oh, wait. And I need my, oh, shit. I put my earbuds. 1 second. I got to get my ear stuff so I can listen to this bullshit. It's not bullshit. It's history. Okay. I had them charging. Okay. No taxation without representation. Well, that's certainly what we have here in California with cannabis. So let's look up this. Let's watch. We're going to get historical today. Wow, we have a lot of people here. And a lot of you have ordered my cookbook. But if you haven't ordered it yet, I'm going to put this. I feel like, listen, I'm putting the Amazon one up top, okay? And if you want a different link, I will send it to you. But I think a lot of people are there, and people don't like to click more than one link. Okay. All right. So we're looking at salt. I want to see how long this is. It's only 6 minutes. That's exactly what we're looking for. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Slow down, video. Okay. Let me get over to browser. Don't like to click more. It's going too fast for us. Okay. Wait, someone said hi to me. Hi, Brian Skitch. Welcome. How is the truck? The truck is great. Truck is great. Okay. Exactly. Let me make sure my slow down. My video AirPods are connected so I can hear. Oh shit. It's going too fast for us. Wait, someone said hi to me. Shit, you guys were hearing me double. I'm sorry. That's annoying. Anyway, my bad.
Oh, the French. They've gotten a great...
How come I can't hear this?
many things right.
No. Let me see.
Over the years.
Yeah, connect these. Hello.
But taxing
There we
salt was not one of them. One thing they did get right was the harvesting and production of their most famous salt, fleur de sel, or flower of
That's where I
salt.
put my chocolates
Called this
for a
because
long
of the
time.
flower-like patterns the salt can make when it's formed. The harvesting of fleur de sel goes back to the Roman era, as Pliny the Elder mentions it about 77 AD. But it could go back even further. One of the most sought-after types of fleur de sel comes from the town and surrounding coastline of Gironde. And it's believed they've been producing fleur de sel there since at least the...
What I used to use on marigold. For many years, I used fleur de sel de Gironde, but I stopped because I got ripped off by this brand called Lord Jones. And so I switched to Malden because I wanted to differentiate myself from these assholes who were totally ripping off my packaging and my whole concept.
The Iron Age. And at one time it was even called white gold and sought after as a supreme luxury item by the rich. The French also have a number of really fun expressions when it comes to salt. Put a little bit of salt in your life. Add a grain of salt. A joke full of salt. I don't know what that means. And possibly my favorite, a table without salt is like a mouth without saliva. Also, if you're French or you know what these French expressions are really used for, let me know that in the comments down below.
This guy's a little weird,
I'm not entirely sure. Like many other nations, the French were not immune to the powers of salt when it comes to finance. Things for salt in the French really heated up in 1246 when Louis IX established a large French port that encompassed a huge amount of salt evaporation ponds. Louis launched the Seventh Crusade against the Middle East. Arrgh! And he managed to capture an Egyptian port. Yay! But then he was promptly defeated and captured to boot. Didn't think that one through, did you? Still, for capturing this Egyptian salt port and fighting the crusade, he was canonized and henceforth known as Saint Louis. After he lost what he gained, Louis purchased another salt works, making France one of the largest salt producers in the world. This leads us to France's really messed up salt tax known as the gabelle. And this salt tax ended up being the symbol that led a revolution to topple the entire French government. The gabelle was supposed to be a temporary salt tax, but, you know, taxes are kind of flexible that way. And one of the things that made it really bad was it varied wildly from one part of the country to another, which made people smuggle salt across the borders of different regions, which made the government make smuggling salt a capital offense. Essentially, the gabelle was a poll tax that was supposed to be evenly balanced between the rich and the poor. But as history and even modern times show, this doesn't always work as advertised. And many provisions to the gabelle led to a much heavier share of this tax being taken.
Let me show you my salad really quickly. So it's kind of boring because I'm trying not to eat too many calories, but it's chicken, blackened chicken with lettuce, jicama, some dressing. I think there's some cabbage in here, kale, some almonds. And so I'm going to shake this up and eat it. But let's keep learning about the gabelle. They didn't like it, okay? So, like, the poor people wouldn't get enough salt. And, like, salt, you need salt for your health.
Taken on by the poor. And among these provisions was the dreaded sel de devoir, a vicious duty that required people to buy over 15 pounds of salt at government prices. And if that sounds like a lot, it is. This was way more than the average person required, unless they planned on salting in excess of meats. But no, because the sel de devoir also prohibited people from salting their meat.
What?
So what the heck were they supposed to do with all this salt?
Why couldn't they salt their meat?
And to add insult to injury, people found guilty of committing salt fraud were tried, salted, meaning they had salt poured over them, and then they were even put on public display for punishment. And even weirder, in the 17th century, suicide was illegal. But if you committed suicide, they didn't care. They would still take the body and salt it, not as a way to preserve the body,
Michelle,
as a
that's a good
and
one.
then they still put that body on display. Yeah, evolution is pretty slow, isn't it? By the end of the 18th century, a non-stop flow of rebellions had risen up against the gabelle and its enforcers. It even got to the point where 3,000 people were sentenced to prison, and many of those sentenced to death for salt offenses. So it was no wonder that fighting the gabelle became a big symbol of the French Revolution of 1789.
Wow.
And after the revolution overthrew the king, the gabelle was finally removed, and all charged under it were set free. Liberty! Freedom! Justice!
Okay.
And then Napoleon brought the gabelle back.
Sorry guys, one second. My dog. No, you can stay. Okay, they know you're tough. All right, Bonbon. Okay. She didn't like anyone nearby.
But luckily, it didn't last. Partly because, ironically, he didn't provide enough salt to his armies and had to retreat from Russia. Still, the gabelle went on, even though many of its restrictions were lessened. And it wasn't until 1946 that the gabelle was finally officially abolished. Alright, so here's another really crazy story about salt in France. So in 1893, the salt companies around the old port of Aigues-Mortes, that's the port that was created by St. Louis, well, they couldn't seem to hire enough people during an economic crisis that was going on. So they brought in a bunch of workers from Italy. Well, this didn't sit well with the locals at all. And on the morning of August 16th, things escalated quickly after a series of brawls and arguments, eventually leading to the Italians having to hold up in a bakery, while the locals wanted to set it on fire. The French troops were called in to protect the Italians around 4 a.m., but they didn't arrive on time. And in the meantime, the local gendarmes promised to get the Italians out of town. But as they were leading the Italians back to the train station in Aigues-Mortes, the crowds overwhelmed the gendarmes and attacked. While most accounts say around 8 to 10 people were killed, with as many as 50 being injured. There are some other accounts that say up to 50 were killed, with another 400 being injured. And this incident stood as the biggest slaughter of immigrants in French history until the Paris Massacre of 1961. And it is still one of the biggest scandals in French history, as absolutely no convictions happened after the riots. For more amazing salt history, you need to watch this video right here next. Until next time, be kind, take care of each other.
Okay. So that was the salt. That was France, right? They fucking got pissed because the French don't fuck around. The French, they really do things. You know, they put manure into the middle of the street and they really protest. But let's learn about when we've done that. Boston Tea Party in 4 minutes. I hope it's going to talk because I don't want to read.
December 16th, 1773, Boston Harbor. By the end of the night, 342 chests of tea would be dumped into the harbor. Known as the Boston Tea Party, this event was a protest against taxation and British mercantilism. In some ways, the event had been brewing for 10 years. Following the end of the French and Indian War, Britain wanted to tax the colonies and regain some of the money that had been spent for their protection. This violated two principles. First, the idea that the colonies were governed directly by the king. Second, the theory of mercantilism, which said that a mother country would protect the colonies since they provided a vast amount of income. As Parliament tried to take control and levy taxes, American colonists protested. A series of acts and taxes led to boycotts, protests, and creative resistance. By 1773, Parliament had repealed most of the unpopular tax acts. However, the Tea Act remained. Created by Parliament to financially rescue the floundering East India Tea Company, the Tea Act gave a monopoly and several other financial breaks to the company, allowing them to exclusively sell tea in the American colonies.
Uh-oh.
Had a brush with the East India Trading Company, did we?
Oh, look, it's in Pirates of the Caribbean.
When 3 ships of the East India Tea Company stood off Boston Harbor, protesting colonists refused to allow the ships to unload the cargo. But the Royalist governor of Massachusetts refused to allow the ships to leave. On September 16th, the Sons of Liberty reacted.
Hey, Winslow.
Putting on disguises inspired by the Native American Mohawk tribe warriors, the colonists headed for the harbor. Their costumes had symbolic meaning, since both British and colonials recognized Native Americans as a group that did not want to be ruled by European powers. The disguised Sons of Liberty boarded the 3 ships, and for the next 3 hours diligently unloaded the tea into Boston Harbor. It's estimated that 92,000 pounds of tea were emptied into Boston Harbor that night.
Wow.
And the estimated value of that lost cargo was around $1,700,000 in modern U.S. currency. Samuel Adams, a leader of the Sons of Liberty, insisted that the Boston Tea Party was not the actions of a mob, but rather a protest of colonists who were asserting the idea, no taxation without representation. The British governor, Parliament, and the king viewed the Boston Tea Party as rebellion, and in response instituted the Intolerable Acts, which included closing the Boston Harbor to trade. Though the start of the American Revolution and the shot heard round the world was still more than a year and a half away, the Boston Tea Party was a major moment in the road to rebellion and eventual independence for the American colonies. John Adams, a relative of Samuel Adams, noted in his diary a few days after the Boston Tea Party, "This is the most magnificent movement of all. There is a dignity, a majesty, a sublimity in this last effort of the patriots that I greatly admire. The people should never rise without doing something to be remembered, something notable and striking. This destruction of the tea is so bold, so daring, so firm, intrepid, and inflexible, and it must have so important consequences and so lasting that I can't but consider it as an epocha in history."
Too bad it got co-opted by those crazy people. All right. Then there was the sugar taxes. So we had those taxes, right? And people in Boston were like, fuck no, on the tea tax. Then we had sugar taxes, okay? The British tariffs and modern soda tax. So they're trying to do that now, they're trying to make sodas more difficult to get, right? Which, I don't know. It's always funny to me because conservatives are supposed to be wanting smaller government, right? But then they're doing all this shit that's getting into our lives. Like, you got to eat healthy. It's like, okay, well, how are you going to regulate that? Good afternoon. What's up, G420? We're learning about taxes. Is what we're learning about. And then we're going to go into cannabis stuff. This will be interesting. Oh shit, this is an hour long.
Okay, don't kick me off this podcast. I haven't eaten a Pop-Tart since high school. But I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to eat a lot on Monday, apparently.
I eat so many Pop-Tarts. I don't know about you guys, but I love Pop-Tarts. Not so many, but someone offered me a Pop-Tart. Winslow, what's your thing with corn syrup? Okay, let's look up corn syrup. It's no different, right? Corn syrup, fructose, with like the type sucrose. It's just where it's coming from. Unless you're talking about, let's watch the process and see if it's that scary. I'm making corn syrup since you brought this up before.
Wait, don't kick me off this podcast. I haven't eaten a Pop-Tart since high school.
Toaster strudels, Michelle? Ooh, why'd you remind me of those? I fucking love a toaster strudel.
Did you know 54% of foods you eat are hiding a sweet secret? That's right, corn syrup. The sneaky little sweetener that's found its way into almost everything. From the jam on your toast to the buttery croissant you crave every morning. But have you ever wondered how something so simple becomes so irresistible? How did this sweet magic make its way into your favorite treats?
Let's see.
Corn syrup is often used as a substitute for another popular sweetener.
Petra, don't eat them, man.
You guess what it is? Buckle up, because we're about to uncover the mind-blowing story behind corn syrup. A journey that starts in the golden cornfields and ends in the sweet syrup hiding in your favorite snacks. Trust us, you won't want to miss this. Step 1. Harvesting and receiving the corn.
Okay.
Let's head to the cornfields, where the journey of fresh corn begins. Harvesting typically starts in late summer to early fall, timed perfectly to ensure the corn is at its ripest. Massive combine harvesters take over the fields, working efficiently to cut down stalks,
Sugar is no better for
strip
you
the ears
guys. Sugar is just as bad. It's bad for you. It's not good for you. You know, corn syrup, sugar, agave, whatever. Maybe maple syrup's a little bit lower glycemic, but we can look at that. We're getting a little sidetracked, but that's okay. Sugar, alcohols, artificial sweeteners, understanding sweeteners. I don't, like, the problem is I don't trust any of this shit. So understanding sweeteners, this is a government thing, so we'll see. Glycemic index, right? All right, let's keep watching this corn syrup, but I'm going to be looking at this. Heavily subsidized by the government to give farmers who grow corn a healthy market for their product.
ears of corn and separate them from the cobs, all in a single seamless process. Once harvested, the kernels are transported to drying facilities, where they are carefully dried to reduce their moisture content to about 14%, the ideal level for safe storage and transport. Timing here is extremely important. Too much moisture and the corn risks mold. Too little and the kernels crack during handling.
Okay.
Farmers closely monitor weather conditions during this stage, ensuring they harvest under dry skies to prevent excess moisture. After drying, the corn is stored in temperature-controlled silos, preserving freshness until it's loaded onto trucks, trains, or barges. From here, it's off to wet corn mills. Don't blink, because the journey's just beginning. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button to keep following the journey. The good stuff, we've got to make sure the kernels are spotless. These kernels have been through the fields, so they're bringing along dirt, sticks, and maybe even a little metal from the harvesting equipment. Not exactly what you want in your corn syrup. So, how do we get rid of all these impurities?
We don't have any sugar.
These vibrating screens shake the kernels so that larger debris like stones, twigs, and cob fragments fall through the mesh, while the clean kernels move on. Once the heavier contaminants are removed, the kernels move into air classifiers, where carefully controlled streams of air blow away lighter impurities, such as dust, husks, and chaff. To tackle hidden dangers, powerful industrial magnets sweep through, capturing any stray metal fragments, such as screws or nails that could compromise the process. By the time we're done, we have perfectly clean, ready-to-go kernels. Step 3. Soaking the kernels in steep tanks. Now it's time for the kernels to enjoy a long, luxurious soak in something called a steep tank. Think of it as the spa treatment of the corn world. These giant stainless steel tanks can hold a whopping 168,000 pounds of kernels. But this soak isn't just for relaxation. It's a carefully controlled process to turn tough, dry kernels into soft, ready-to-process gems. Here's how it works. Warm water mixed with a bit of sulfur dioxide circulates through the tank, creating a weak sulfurous acid solution. This step helps break down the bonds between the kernel's components, making it easier to separate them later. Think of it like softening the glue that holds everything together. The soak softens the kernels, which makes the next step of the process much easier. This process isn't rushed, so it takes about 20 to 40 hours, during which the kernels absorb water, swelling up by at least 50% of their original size and soften, much like soaking dry beans while you're cooking them. Once they've absorbed the water and softened up, they're ready to be broken down into all the sweet components that make corn syrup so tasty. Step 4. Grinding and separating the germ. After the soaking process is where the real action begins. The softened kernels go to grinding mills, where they're carefully broken apart. And here's the key. We keep the germ, the tiny, nutrient-rich core of the corn kernel, intact, because it contains valuable corn oil. Next, the pulp goes into a cyclone separator, a spinning machine that separates the lighter germ from the heavier starch and fiber. Once separated, the germ is washed and pressed, releasing that golden corn oil we all know and love, used everywhere, from sizzling frying pans to industrial products. Did you know, from 100 pounds of corn, we get about 4 pounds of germ, which produces up to 1.5 pounds of oil. So, not only are we getting closer to making corn syrup, but nothing goes to waste. How cool is that?
Well, it's the starch. 5. You can make alcohol
separating
out of it.
And purifying the starch. Now that the germ is removed, what's left is a slurry of starch, protein, and fiber. The fiber is washed out and dried to be repurposed as animal feed or corn bran fiber in cereals. The protein, also called gluten, is separated using centrifuges. The final product is pure starch, which will now play a key role in the syrup-making process. Now, the pure starch is filtered and washed up to 14 times, making it over 99.5% pure. At this point, some of the starch is packaged and sold as cornstarch, which you often use in cooking or baking delicious desserts. But the majority of the purified starch goes on to become corn syrup, and this is where things start getting really sweet. Step 6. Converting starch to corn syrup. Here it is.
How do you do it?
The big moment we've all been waiting for. The starch is finally transformed into syrup through a process called acid hydrolysis. In simpler terms, the wet starch is mixed with a weak acid and heated, breaking it down into simpler sugars. But how does this affect the syrup's sweetness? It all comes down to timing. The longer the process runs, the more starch gets converted into sugars, making the syrup sweeter. Once the desired level of sweetness is achieved, the mixture goes through filtration to remove impurities, clarification to refine it further, and evaporation to remove excess water. And just like that, you have pure liquid corn syrup ready to sweeten the world. Step 7. Creating high fructose corn syrup. Hold up, we're not done yet. If you're making soda, candy, or desserts that need that extra sweet punch, corn syrup gets a little extra treatment. Enzymes are added to break down the sugars further, converting some of the glucose into fructose. This makes the syrup much sweeter and more potent. The enzymes work best at a specific temperature range, usually around 140 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, and in a carefully controlled pH environment, ranging from 4 to 6.5, to get the perfect balance of sweetness. Once it's done, you've got high fructose corn syrup, which is about 42% fructose and way sweeter than regular corn syrup. That's why your soft drinks taste even sweeter. Isn't it crazy how much goes into making the syrup sweeter and sweeter? Step 8. Final distribution and retail. Once packaged, these sweeteners are sent to food manufacturers and retailers across the globe. Trucks, trains, and tankers are used to transport over 30 million tons of corn syrup annually to ensure it reaches shelves everywhere, from small local shops to large multinational chains. Corn syrup's real magic is its versatility. It sneaks into everything from fizzy drinks and baked goods to savory sauces. High fructose corn syrup, with its extra sweetness, is a favorite in sodas and candies. It's no wonder these products have become staples in so many recipes. Next time you're at the store, take a second to glance at the ingredient list of your favorite snacks or drinks. Chances are, this sweet addition has traveled quite a journey to end up in your hands.
All right, we got sidetracked by high fructose corn syrup. Gottlieb Kirchhoff invented corn syrup in 1811. Wow. Well, there you go. We're going to look up something else. Hopefully this isn't long.
Wayne Wheeler, the head of the No Alcohol Ever Anti-Saloon League, was fond of telling a certain story during his many speeches railing against alcohol in the U.S. When he was a child, working on his family farm in Ohio, a drunken farmhand stabbed him in the leg with a pitchfork while moving hay. It was a defining moment. Wheeler dedicated his life to banning alcohol. He boasted that he wrote the 18th Amendment, starting Prohibition.
But his burning passion for temperance had unforeseen consequences, namely, the birth of the income tax.
The call for Prohibition started mainly as a religious movement in the early 1800s. Maine passed the first state prohibition law in 1846. The Prohibition Party was established in 1869, and the movement gained support in the 1880s and 1890s.
Social reformers saw alcohol as the cause of poverty, industrial accidents, the breakup of families, urban immigrant ghettos, political corruption, and criminals in general.
Right.
The Anti-Saloon League and the Women's Christian Temperance Union, founded in 1874 and 1893 respectively, became powerful crusaders against legalized alcohol.
I needed that.
Counties and states started passing laws to ban alcohol.
Can I just say it's really hard to eat in a deficit? I could have eaten 2 of those salads, but it's not in my caloric budget right now. What's up, JL?
And by 1916, 26 of the then 48 states had passed prohibition laws.
Crazy.
By the time the 18th Amendment would be passed, around half of the country was already dry.
Wow.
And the government was feeling the effect.
Liquor taxes were a huge part of government revenue up through the 1910s. It provided for 30 to 40% of the revenue for the federal government.
Wow.
And was something they really couldn't function without. National prohibition would go on to destroy the 5th largest economy in the U.S., or at least its legal side.
The government could read the writing on the wall. They needed a different source of revenue. The federal income tax was the solution. And it allowed the government to function during the prosperous 1920s, when there was a lot of income to be collected.
Wow.
People at the time thought that tariffs unequally affected the lower class, and that an income tax would help level the playing field. At the time when it was implemented, the income tax affected people who made around $2,000 a year, which is around $115,000 a year adjusted for inflation.
But that was
people
6
around
years
the
ago.
country, but especially in the South and West, where people were less wealthy, supported it.
But people didn't actually stop drinking alcohol and start going to church like Wayne Wheeler wanted.
Okay,
Instead of spending their money on whatever you spend money on in the late 1920s,
people decided to spend their money on illegal alcohol.
Uh-oh.
In 1 year during the Prohibition, Al Capone, the infamous mob boss, made $60 million. And obviously, he didn't pay taxes on it.
No.
The other moonshiners, bootleggers, and gangsters didn't pay taxes either.
See?
Prohibition cost the government $11 billion in lost
That's
tax
what
revenue,
happens.
but cost them $300 million to enforce. Historians say there may have been more than 30,000 speakeasies in New York City alone. Even politicians who supported Prohibition in public continued imbibing in private. President Warren G. Harding, for example,
like
stocked
when
the White
Gavin
House
Newsom
with
was
whiskey
telling
for
us
his infamous poker nights.
That's like when Gavin Newsom was telling us to stay home and then he got caught at the French Laundry. I couldn't believe that. I mean, I could believe it, but I just was like, bro. Way to be an elitist prick, man. Some rules for you, different rules for me.
While his Commerce Secretary, Herbert Hoover, liked to stop for a drink at the Belgian embassy, where U.S. law technically didn't apply.
Feel free to send me a
One
super chat if you're having
estimated that he
fun.
supplied 2/3 of Congress with liquor. An ill-advised government program to poison industrial alcohol, with the goal of stopping bootleggers from redistilling it into something drinkable, purportedly led to thousands of deaths. Having only a federal income tax wasn't sustainable. And after the stock market crash in 1929, the Great Depression began. Income taxes fell dramatically. By that point, ordinary workers had to pay income tax, and labor unions began to oppose them. Prohibition had forced an estimated 250,000 alcohol industry employees out of work, and there wasn't much income to be collected. In 1932, income tax revenues were 46% lower than just 2 years earlier. And by 1933, they were a full 60% lower than in 1930. The 21st Amendment was ratified on December 5th, 1933, and ended Prohibition.
There today, wine will be the next thing.
Sorry, 1 second. Did I lose the bonbon cam? God damn it, GoPro. Why won't it show me the preview? Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I tried to get the bonbon cam, but it... Fuck. Never works. All right. Bonbon's out. She's right there, you guys. She doesn't want to...
And finally, the repeal of the 18th Amendment.
The government needed the revenue from federal liquor taxes. But because they had kept spending during the Great Depression, they needed more money than just that from liquor taxes.
That was a good one.
So they kept the federal income tax despite the repeal. The new liquor tax funded much of the New Deal, with alcohol and other excise taxes bringing in $1.35 billion.
Wow.
Nearly half of the federal government's total revenue in 1934. Individual income taxes brought in only $420 million that year. Wayne Wheeler, according to his biographer, was a true political operator. He held sway over 2 presidents and 6 Congresses. But even passion can't prevail over cold, hard cash or a cold drink, especially when the two mean the same thing.
Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha.
Do you blame Wayne Wheeler for giving us the federal income tax?
I don't. Okay. So cool. How do these historical examples relate to today's taxation on cannabis? Are we seeing a pattern where consumables are heavily taxed, often impacting marginalized communities? I think that the cannabis taxes that we're about to talk about really hinder our industry. It makes it onerous to work in, to operate. Fraggle Rock says Pete and Sam Carlino were the biggest bootleggers here in southern Colorado during Prohibition. That's cool. What about mead? I have no idea. Okay, where do cannabis taxes go? That's something we're going to look into. I'm going to pull up an article that Winslow sent me today that I hope I can read. It's Business Insider, so sometimes it doesn't let you read it. There we go. Where's it going to pull it up? Here, so let me see if I can. Oh, that's Safari. Let's go here. Marijuana tax, they always say marijuana, is now funding $750 no strings attached. Motherfucker, I don't want to subscribe, you little shits. It's paywalled, motherfuckers. Man, that sucks. All right, let me see if I can read it here. It's letting me read it on my phone. So $750 no strings attached monthly payments to families in New Mexico. Albuquerque is now funding a basic income project with its tax on recreational cannabis. Let me make sure you can hear me so I'm not just yabbering for a minute. Okay, you can hear me. The program targets vulnerable communities, providing $750 monthly payments to families. This isn't just about allocating dollars, it's about delivering tangible benefits, a city councilor said. Tax revenue on the sale of recreational cannabis has become a major source of income for states where it's legal. New Mexico is now redistributing that money to communities it says need it most. Some families in Albuquerque, New Mexico started receiving monthly no-strings-attached payments this month as part of a new basic income project funded in part by tax revenue from recreational cannabis sales. The city first approved the $4.02 million basic income plan in March. City revenue from cannabis sales is contributing more than $2 million into that total, according to a city press release. The program is providing the $750 monthly payment to 80 families in 2 districts where students struggle with low academic performance. The city will also offer financial counseling to the families. Albuquerque, oh, that's cool. Albuquerque, if they're not going to be like, here's some money. They're going to be like, hey, here's some ways that you can invest like pay this down and do this. So they're setting them up and they're helping them to spend the money, to have some advice about it. That's great. Albuquerque, excuse me. Albuquerque is not the first city in America to experiment with guaranteed basic income programs, which usually target vulnerable low-income populations like new moms, Black women, or trans people. Guaranteed basic income programs are different than a universal basic income, which would provide monthly support to an entire population regardless of status. Advocates for a basic income say it helps people in difficult financial situations find their footing. Basic income studies often show positive results. Recipients say it improves their housing security and mental health and even allows them to seek better jobs through education and more time to search. It is not, however, without its critics. Lawmakers in South Dakota, Iowa, and Idaho, oh, shocking, have passed laws banning basic income programs at the city and county level. They say the payments are akin to socialism and discourage recipients from working. And what is it when the president wants to give women $5,000 to pop out babies? City officials in Albuquerque said in the press release that their basic income program is meant to help close the wealth gap. The city says it prioritizes recipients who are negatively impacted by the criminalization of cannabis, such as Black, Native American, Asian, and Pacific Islanders, women, and low-income families. This program puts money where it's needed most into the hands of struggling families working to build a better future. Mayor Tim Keller said in a statement, Albuquerque is a city that will always fight to correct injustices and will push to help families get the tools they need to succeed with dignity. City Councilor Clarissa Pena, who leads the city's Cannabis Equity and Community Reinvestment Fund, said in a statement that the program must show clear implementation strategies and measurable outcomes. And that's why I like that they have someone also helping with like, hey, here's how to spend this money. Bill is leaving. Oh, I know who you are. You're the person who asked me, do we have to talk about politics? And I saw your message, and then I restricted you. And yeah, we do have to talk about politics because it impacts people's lives. And it must be nice to be someone who is so privileged that you don't have to worry about politics because nothing really affects you. But this affects a lot of people, affects me, affects people that I care about. Politics do. And it's important to be informed and not just have your head in the sand or up somebody's Cheeto-stained asshole. So just in case you didn't know who I am. Anyway, peace. Who leads the city's cannabis equity? Okay, so we're reading measurable outcomes. This isn't just about allocating dollars. It's about delivering tangible benefits to the communities disproportionately impacted by past injustices. She said, we owe them more than good intentions. We owe them results. Ooh. Pena told BI Business sounds like bowel something, that the program isn't simply providing basic income, though these and many other measures, along with the basic income assistance, our community will reap long-term public health benefits, reductions in addiction rates, and taxpayer savings, she said in an email. That's great. Okay, and that's it. That's the whole article. Thanks for sending that. Okay, it wasn't you? Are you sure? Okay. Well, someone had messaged me on Instagram, and they're like, we don't have to talk about politics. I was like, oh, well, you don't know who the fuck you're talking to. So I like to be informed. I think it's lazy to not be. I get it. Sometimes people don't. Well, I didn't used to like to hear about the news. But I'm a 38-year-old woman, and I care, and I want to be informed. What else are we doing? What else are we doing if we're not going to know what the hell's going on around us and in something that we can somehow kind of impact with our vote, with voting and knowing who to vote for and what to vote for and why to vote for it and how it impacts the world in the way that things ripple through. It's such a simple thing. You need to see the results. Anyway. Okay, Bill, I hear you. It wasn't you. So we'll flip you off, but that was for whoever messaged me that. Another bill. Anyway, so we're also going to look at New York's allocation. Okay, so New York's, I want to see this. I'm going to go to this site and send this. Okay, let's look at New York, all right? It's not California. We can go outside of California. Let's explore something new. What the hell happened here? Oh, this is I think I can put this into our thing. Sometimes I like to do that with PDFs. Can you go? It's going to let us look at it. Here we go. What is the law? Office of Cannabis Management. So, New York State's legalized adult cannabis. Blah, blah, blah. 3 taxes on adult use cannabis. First, there is a wholesale excise tax. It imposed on the sale of cannabis products by a distributor to a retail dispensary at 9% of the cannabis product price. Wow. This tax is applied differently for micro businesses or registered, organized, and dispensing ROD. This is my news channel, Petra. I'll send you the news. Then we should be talking about that poor woman in Georgia who's incubating Anyway. Okay, so 40% to the state lottery fund. After upfront costs, the remaining tax revenue. Okay, wait, listen. So after upfront costs, right? Costs of regulating the industry. here's how they're going to allocate the money coming into New York, which is going to be a lot. 40% to the state lottery fund for education purposes. Love it. The revenue from the fund must be additional spending on education and not supplant existing revenue sources. Got it. So it has to be in addition. They can't just be like, oh, we're going to take this money from the cannabis industry and this will replace the funding that we've got from this other tax that's supposed to go to education. They're saying we want more funding than we already currently have going to education, because we want our community to be educated. We want our kids to have, good teachers and, tools and pencils and all of that jazz. So that's great. Happy to have cannabis money go toward that. So when you go and you're in New York, just realize that you're helping to support the education system there in New York by smoking weed. Okay, so then 40% to the Community Grants Reinvestment Fund. The grants in this fund will be awarded by the State Cannabis Advisory Board to qualified community-based nonprofit organizations and local governments to support several community revitalization efforts, including but not limited to job placement and skill services. Cool. Adult education. Love it. Mental health treatment. Big, big, big thumbs up to that. Substance use disorder treatment. Love it. Although whatever. Housing. Good. Financial literacy. Cool. Community banking. Nutrition services. Services to address adverse childhood experiences. Legal services to address barriers to reentry. So if you're a grant writer, this is something to be interested in, that there are going to be these grants because of the cannabis community that you can apply to the State Cannabis Advisory Board, right? So that's who you need to apply, I guess, to get those grants. Hi, Chris Core. How's it going? The OCM will issue an annual report detailing how the revenues from the Community Grants Reinvestment Fund were spent the previous year. So if you're interested in that, you can look it up. 20% to the Drug Treatment and Public Education Fund. Okay, so let's see. The monies in this fund will be expended by the Office of Addiction Services, okay, and supports and dispersed in consultation with the Department of Health, the Office of Mental Health, and the Office of Cannabis Management, and the Commissioner of Education. A lot of cooks in that kitchen, I'll say that. Okay, so, I feel like I'm way back. Let me put me a little bit there. There we go. Okay, so to develop and implement a youth-focused public health education and prevention campaign. What does this mean? Including school-based prevention, early intervention, and healthcare services and programs to reduce the risk of cannabis and other substance use by school-age children. You're just going to make them want to do it more. Talking about it more and telling them not to do something is just going to make them want to do it more. Anyway, okay. And to develop and implement a statewide public health campaign focused on the health effects of cannabis and legal use, including an ongoing education prevention campaign that educates the general public, including parents, consumers, and retailers, on the legal uses of cannabis, the importance of preventing youth access, the importance of safe storage. I do talk about that a lot in my cookbook. Maybe I should contact them and say, hey, listen, let's talk about edibles. Let's make some campaigns about edibles and making sure edibles don't get into the hands of children. You should be going, no kid is going to pick up a thing of flour unless they're older and be like, oh, let me smoke this or, eat it. But if you have a cookie, an infused cookie, it's very easy to eat it. And kids don't know the difference. Okay, so that's cool. To provide substance use disorder treatments for youth and adults with an emphasis on programs that are culturally and gender competent, trauma-informed, evidence-based, and provide a continuum of care that includes screening and assessment, substance use disorder, as well as mental health, early intervention, active treatment. Cool. Anything that is going to be helping with mental health, just providing hopefully beneficial treatment, because not all treatment, not all therapy is good. not all true. You know, it's got to be the right shit. So hopefully it's the right stuff that they're recommending for these kids, although any kind of community and support is better than none. So therapy, family therapy, health, this is all cool. So they're putting it to really good programs. The commissioner must issue an annual report detailing how the revenues from the drug treatment and public education fund were spent the previous year. So if you really want to look into it and see how they spent it. So then there's medical cannabis taxes, which is much less than, so if you want to get your medical card, that's a great way to kind of go around taxes. 50% of the money shall be transferred to the counties in New York State in which the medical cannabis was manufactured and allocated to proportion to the gross sales originating from the medical cannabis manufacturer. Okay, what about it? It's just going to go to the counties. All right, it's just going to counties. It's not that much, I guess. Okay, there you go. So that's what's happening in New York. Let me look at my other resources. So that's pretty cool. In California, so we saw how what's happening in New Mexico, how they're using some of the cannabis funds. Let's see what California is doing. Okay. Maybe there's a video as well. Okay, I want to see this. Well, one second. Let me read this really quickly and then we'll watch a video. Reported cannabis tax revenue today for the first quarter as of $259 million. Background. Okay, but what is it spending it on? Let's see. I can't watch sports. It's too boring for me. What's this? Let's get rid of that. Oh, I thought it was a video. Is it? Yeah, I want to play this. I don't want it full screen though, but I want it bigger. Oh wait, we don't want to watch an ad. Ew. Ew. No offense to Pete, but like, I guess I'll take a bong hit. Boo, boo, boo. Oh wait.
Grade rose last quarter, but our
What the hell happened here?
news from
I don't really like committing to things.
It's not working, okay? One second. I thought I had something good. Let me go to...
San Diegans will soon be paying more for their cannabis products at dispensaries throughout the city. Today, the city council approved a cannabis tax increase from 8% to 10% to help chip away at a projected $250 million budget deficit. CBS 8's Richard Allen is here with more on how much this move is expected to generate in revenue and the unintended consequences it could have. Richard.
Well, Carla, that's right. And in fact, cannabis tax revenues here in the city of San Diego are declining due to increasing competition from nearby cities and as the illegal market still looms large.
I'm gonna get some
in fiscal year 2023, the city received just over $18 million in cannabis business tax, but that figure dropped by $1.5 million the following year. Despite this downward trend, though, the tax increase is expected to generate millions for the city's general fund.
Bread, I mean, everything's just more expensive nowadays.
Including in the city of San Diego, the cost of cannabis products at more than 24 dispensaries within city limits, after city council approved hiking the tax rate for cannabis businesses from 8% to 10%.
It's the price you pay.
Pacific Beach resident Alex Marquez says while he's not excited about paying more, he'll most likely continue shopping at the same dispensaries he does now.
Some people are going to find what they're looking for elsewhere, but I know that there's a lot of people who are like me who are just going to suck it up and pay that little extra and keep that convenience.
Some question whether the higher price could encourage some San Diegans to turn to the black market for cheaper prices.
It will maybe drive up the illicit market, if anything like that. I'll still take that convenience over trying to have to find it myself or trying to, look elsewhere. Then maybe you get yourself in like a dangerous situation.
Still, this 2% increase could generate nearly $4 million in additional funds for the city if sales hold steady.
I figure that most places will have deals that are like, you spend over 50, you get a delivery thing, or you get some kind of discount that could incentivize, kind of bypassing that 2% or, pass the savings on.
This tax hike will make the city of San Diego's cannabis business tax the highest in the county. Currently, Chula Vista, Encinitas, and Vista have rates of 7%. Oceanside and Lemon Grove are at 5%. La Mesa is at 4%. And unincorporated San Diego County is only 2%. Some question whether it's worth it to drive farther for a cheaper tax rate.
At what point do I have to weigh like the gas? Am I going to pay a little bit more in gas to get a little bit less of a tax, or go down the street and I could walk there if I wanted to? So it's a give and take. What are you going to do?
And this increased tax rate for cannabis businesses will go into effect in the city of San Diego beginning May 1st.
So, Richard, how does San Diego's tax, the city of San Diego's tax on cannabis, compare to other major cities here in California?
Well, actually, this tax hike is going to put us more on a par with major cities like Los Angeles and San Jose, which already have a 10% business tax hike on cannabis businesses. San Francisco, though, is a little bit of an outlier. There, it's 2.5% to 5%, depending on how much business the individual dispensary does.
Quite a gap between cities like Los Angeles and San Diego on that. This tax increase specifically targets dispensaries. But what about facilities that produce cannabis, grow labs, that kind of thing?
That's right, and that's a very good question. So back in 2022, an ordinance was passed to reduce the tax on cannabis production to only 2%. And in fact, this new move will not change the tax rate for those production businesses. Carla?
A lot going on in the cannabis world, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot going on in the cannabis world. Okay, so that was very interesting, don't we think? All right, so California's a mess. We're getting ready to do this, increase our taxes from 15 to 18 or 19%, sorry, July 1. So they're just taxing us up the wazoo, and I don't, what's it going to do? Probably push people to grow at home, and I don't know, it's so expensive. Smoke less or go to the illegal market, but hopefully that doesn't happen too much. I also want to look into 280E. So we're still going with our tax thing. Let me take a bong hit, okay? How we doing? 2018, San Francisco had their tax at 40%. That's so funny. That's so funny, man. Jaden, I think they hit it on the head in Bon Appetit. We're going through a prohibition era with weed. Totally. Liberty Genetics, I haven't been very successful. Every time I grow, I get caterpillars, but I'll try. Is it too late for me to start seeds? I have seeds. I didn't start them. Is it too late now for me to start them? Okay, I wanted to talk about, now that I took my bong hit, woo, really hit my head. All right, let's talk about 280E. We're getting really in the weeds with this. It's an IRS code, Reagan era IRS code, a section of the Internal Revenue Code that prohibits businesses dealing with Schedule 1 or Schedules 2 substances from deducting expenses. Okay? Okay, cool. Thanks, Liberty Genetics. I'll fucking sprout those babies, and you're going to help me. You can start any seeds anytime. Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to do it. All right. So, implications for cannabis businesses, right? Well, I think it's pretty obvious you can't write off your expenses. Cannabis businesses cannot deduct ordinary expenses like rent, salaries, or utilities, leading to effective tax rates of up to 70%. Okay? So let's look at this. Let me see if I can find it. Find a video of it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
In 1982, in response to a court case involving a drug trafficker who attempted to claim business expenses related to his illegal trafficking, the 280E tax code was introduced. This tax code prohibits businesses from deducting expenses related to the trafficking of Schedule 1 or 2 controlled substances from their federal taxable income. Now, you might be wondering what this has to do with the cannabis industry. Well, despite the fact that cannabis has been legalized in many states for medicinal and/or recreational use, it still remains a Schedule 1 controlled substance at the federal level. This means that cannabis businesses are unable to claim many of the standard business deductions that other industries are entitled to, such as rent, utilities, and employee salaries. In other words, they are taxed on their gross revenue rather than their net income. This is a significant financial burden for cannabis businesses, especially given the fact that they are subject to a high tax rate in many states. To put this into perspective, let's say that a cannabis dispensary generates $1 million in revenue in a year. They may have $500,000 in expenses, including rent, salaries, and other business costs. However, because of the 280E tax code, they cannot deduct these expenses from their taxable income. Instead, they would be taxed on the entire $1 million in revenue, which could result in a significant tax bill far higher than what they would pay if they could deduct their expenses. This creates a challenging business environment for cannabis companies. They are effectively paying taxes on their revenue rather than their profit, which makes it difficult for them to reinvest in their business or expand operations. As a result, many cannabis businesses are struggling to stay afloat, and some are even going out of business altogether. It's important to note that the 280E tax code doesn't just affect cannabis dispensaries or cultivators, but also businesses that provide ancillary services to the cannabis industries, such as marketing, accounting, and legal services. These businesses are also subject to the 280E tax code, which means they cannot claim deductions for expenses related to their cannabis clients. So, what issues does this tax code create? It establishes a tax burden that many cannabis businesses are struggling to bear, and it limits their ability to reinvest in their operations and expand. With more states legalizing cannabis and the industry continuing to grow, it's important that we address this issue and find a solution that supports the growth and success of cannabis businesses. Do you think the 280E tax code is necessary, or should it be revised to fit more?
Okay, so there is some potential relief. Obviously, rescheduling cannabis would do something. Although I would prefer it was descheduled. It was treated like alcohol and tobacco, and you regulate it. And so you don't need a prescription. Either way, though, I would take it either way, because even if it's rescheduled and you need a prescription, we know how to get prescriptions. We've worked within the medical system before, and then it should be taxed even less than if it was to be like alcohol or tobacco. So it's really, I don't see anything really happening with this administration. You never know. I don't know. I don't think that's really a priority for them. So I'm just kind of hanging tight. But let's look up this States Act 2.0. see if there's anything recent.
Hey legalizers, welcome back to the channel. I'm your resident weed nerd, a cannabis industry lawyer and dispensary owner who's been fighting the good fight for legalization and not loopholes. Today we pick up where we left off from my last gripe. Congress now has some good bills in it for 2025. 2 fresh off the press bills dropped in Congress on April 17th, 2025, the States 2.0 Act and the Prepare Act. These could be keys to unlocking federal cannabis reform, impacting our dispensary, your stash, and the 24 states where recreational weed is legal, plus 38 with medical programs. Are these bills real or just another DC pipe dream? Well, after reviewing the language in the bills, I'm here to break them down about what's in them, what they're trying to do, and whether they have a snowball's chance in hell of becoming law. Spoiler, I'm skeptical, but there's a tiny spark of hope. So
That's
grab a
fair.
joint. Legally, we hope,
Okay,
and let's
I'll
get
roll a
rolling.
joint,
But if you're
man.
new here, subscribe to watch the laws change and like the videos.
All right, we're
to help
watching
spread
this,
them
my
around.
friends. I'll roll
First
a
up,
joint.
the States 2.0 Act, introduced by Reps David Joyce, Max Miller, and Dinah Titus. Its full name follows the standard naming convention for legalization bills, being an acronym. So here's the full version: strengthening the 10th Amendment through entrusting states act. And you can see States Act. It basically
Right.
says, hey feds,
State
let the
rights,
states
do
do their
what
weed
they
thing.
want. Yeah.
The bill tweaks and amends the Controlled Substances Act somewhat like the Farm Bill did for hemp, taking
Right.
it out of the schedules, but only if it is legally grown on a license in a particular state. So what's the big idea? If
can
marijuana
you
follows
cross
state
state
or
lines
tribal laws, most federal rules don't apply. That's a real game changer for the 24 states with recreational cannabis and the 38 with medical programs, plus the tribes that are getting in on the action.
Right.
Anyway, what's in the bill? This bill amends the Controlled Substances Act by adding new language saying state-compliant marijuana is exempt from the federal ban. It's a little interesting that the federal law of the land would depend on what state you are in. Being a Schedule 1 substance in, for example, Indiana, but then across the border in Illinois, being an unscheduled substance.
Right.
The States Act 2.0 effectively says, chill, focus on something else, which always works when you tell someone to do that. The Attorney General would then have 180 days to make this official, descheduling compliant weed so it's not a controlled substance.
Okay.
But there are guardrails. No selling to anyone under 21, no
Okay.
hiring kids under 18 for cannabis jobs,
Duh.
and you better follow the state rules or you're back in trouble. It also protects tribes, letting them regulate marijuana on their lands if
Yeah.
they're in a legal state,
But
which is
they
a nod to
have
their sovereignty. And next,
sovereign.
it tackles interstate commerce. Right now, cannabis can't cross state lines legally. Can't even
Right.
exist legally, at least
That's
federally.
right.
Which is a headache for businesses like mine. The bill
That's right.
says that no state or tribe can block weed shipments if both the starting and the ending states are legal, just like the hemp laws. However, states can still set time, place, and manner rules, like keeping dispensaries away from schools, but they can't play
Yeah.
border patrol. This could
Okay.
open up a national market, making
Great.
legal weed cheaper and cutting into the illicit market, which, fun fact, is still 75%
What did
of
Winslow
marijuana
say?
sales. At least according to what the
Alcohol,
States
tobacco,
Act
cannabis.
founding
Yeah.
facts say at the beginning of it. So shady dealers, your days may be numbered. Yeah, because she always cared what the law said before. You totally followed it. Anyway, then there's the regulation. The bill hands marijuana products, things edibles, vapes, or tinctures, to the FDA and the Alcohol, Tobacco, Tax,
Ooh.
and Trade Bureau. If it's a drug, it's treated like one. If it's a food or supplement, it's regulated like boozy snacks.
That's right.
Other products would get new rules within 180
That's right.
days.
That's fine.
Covering testing for contaminants, manufacturing standards, and marketing to keep it away from kids. No pre-market approval is needed, which is a relief for many small businesses. But if you want to mix weed with tobacco or alcohol, that is expressly a no-go according to the terms of the States Act 2.0.
See?
And that would make it considered adulterated. But the
See?
FDA considers that THC seltzer in your fridge adulterated as well. At least right now it does, until there are new laws passed to grant the
They'll
FDA the
change
right
it. They'll
to
change
regulate
it.
cannabinoids found in hemp beverages. Financially, the States Act 2.0 is a lifesaver. It says compliant cannabis transactions aren't trafficking. So no
Okay.
property seizures or money laundering
Hi,
charges.
Alan.
Even better, It scraps IRC, that's the Internal Revenue Code, Section 280E, the nightmare rule blocking cannabis businesses from deducting normal expenses. Right now, we're taxed at rates up to 70% because it's on gross profits instead of net revenue.
Ridiculous.
This fix could save dispensaries big time, letting companies invest in better products. You know,
no one will invest in dispensaries.
Safety-wise, it keeps...
And let me just say this. I don't know if you guys saw, but the woods in West Hollywood got broken into and fucking burgled. Thank you, Madam Dram. Yay! Woo! Woo! Wait, let me go back to Maine for a second. Woo! Woo! Bonbon? You gonna say hi? Her little ear? Okay, back to browser. Okay, thank you so much. Amazing, thank you. I'm rolling this joint.
Keeps penalties for selling.
Oh, wait, so the woods got broken into, and here's the worst thing. They won't do anything about it. The cops are not gonna do anything, just like with Cornerstone, and, you know, they don't help the cannabis community because they're like, oh, you're just drug dealers. That's how they see us. So if these businesses like dispensaries, they need help.
Selling to minors, except for medical marijuana prescribed to those under 21. Plus, it orders a study on how legalization affects traffic safety crashes, DUIs, you name it, to make sure that we're not turning our roads into hotbox highways. All in all, the States Act 2.0 is a pretty practical plan that lets states lead while keeping things safe and sane. But here's the million-dollar question. Will it pass? Honestly, it's a tough road ahead.
Right.
The bill has bipartisan support.
Of course.
And public support for legalization is sky high. About 2/3 of Americans are on board. The push to reschedule cannabis to Schedule 3 helps making banks and feds less twitchy about lending or offering services to licensed cannabis businesses.
Yep.
But Congress, much like many American families, is a dysfunctional mess. Similar bills, like the Safe Banking Act, passed the House many times, but kept hitting a Senate wall. With senators backing a version of this before, it's not impossible, but we'll need some real Republican heavyweights to push it. Maybe by tacking it onto a must-pass bill like defense spending or tax cuts. Still, no votes about this may come to the Senate floor under its current leadership. My gut, which is what I listen to on these things, say that it has maybe a 10 to 20% chance. Better than a snowball's chance in hell, but nothing you want to hold your breath on or bet on the outcome of it actually passing. Switching gears, let's talk about the Prepare Act, also introduced by David Joyce and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
No,
that's full name, Preparing Regulators Effectively for Post-Prohibition Adult Use Regulated Environment Act. Bleh. But that does spell prepare. You see, you take a big honking name and you make it into a word. Anyway, the Prepare Act is all about getting the world ready for when federal prohibition ends. This bill does not legalize cannabis outright. Instead, it sets up a commission to figure out how to regulate it, like we do with alcohol.
So crazy, Winslow.
Think of it as the government is saying, you know, this legalization is going to happen, so let's not screw this up. After reviewing the law, it really kind of seems to me like what was Part F of the Controlled Substances Act. That was from the 1970s with the Schaefer Commission that they published after they did all these studies and said that it shouldn't have been a Schedule 1 thing anyway.
Right.
And then Nixon threw that in the trash.
Ugh.
Let's dig into it. After a break from KindPen, you can get a great vaporizer for herbs or concentrated within 30 days of passing. This cruise, the Prepare Act, creates a 29-member commission on the federal regulation of cannabis, led by the Attorney General within 30 days of passing. This crew is a who's who of experts, DOJ folks, FDA and ATF heads, a hemp farmer for some reason, a doctor researching medical weed if they can get funding to do so, even someone who did time for a non-violent cannabis offense. They've got 1 year to propose a regulatory framework, hopefully by April of 2026, if it passes soon. They'll look at everything, productions, sales, taxes, trade, while keeping it adult use only, except for prescribed medical use for those under 21. The Commission's to-do list is pretty long. They'll tackle the damage from criminalization, especially for minority and low-income and veteran communities hit hard by the war on drugs. They'll figure out how to get banks to work with cannabis businesses. Make it legal. That's one way.
Yeah.
Because right now, we're taking the cash
can't.
we earn to fund build-outs on a building we own free and clear because we paid for it in cash. It's nuts and really
you
difficult.
Can't get a bank.
Research also a
So
huge
when you go to
barrier
open a bank account as a business, they ask you if you're in the cannabis industry. And if you say, yes, I'm in the cannabis industry, they go, okay, goodbye. Okay, thanks. No, we can't open an account for you because banks. So people are like, oh, it's legal. I got into this big argument with this, not big argument. You know how I am online. This guy was like, someone posted you can take weed into legal states into the airports and you'll be fine. And that is, it depends where you are. It depends who you are. And it's because TSA is a federal that's a federal entity. And so they are supposed to, if they see you have weed for whatever reason, they are supposed to report you to the local authority. You know, whether that's the local police or whoever. And they're not going to do anything because it's legal here, but they might decide to do something because they want to be assholes. And if I was an immigrant in this country, I wouldn't be trying to push it, right? Because it's not federally legal. It's a Schedule 1. So with banking, the banks are federally insured. And to the federal government, it's a Schedule 1. So you cannot have a business that, it's just, yes, better. They need to legalize it. Yeah, it's very illegal in Texas. But what's interesting is I have a lot of followers on Instagram in Texas. I don't know why.
Because it's Schedule 1, but that would be one of the commission's focus, plus training doctors at public medical schools. So they'll also set rules for product safety, like labeling, to keep kids safe, and sort out how hemp can coexist with cannabis crops and not cross-pollinate one another and mess up THC levels. Maybe they'll even fix how they test THC levels. Here's how it's supposed to work. 60 days after starting, they'll ask for public comments from industry folks, justice advocates, and regular people like you. Within 120 days, they'll drop initial findings online, and then they'll have a public hearing by late October of this year, if it magically passes, featuring state licensed operators and people who've been locked up for weeks. After more feedback, they'll publish final recommendations on the DOJ's website, outlining a federal system modeled on alcohol regulation. Think producers, distributors, retailers. Those are the 3 alcohol licenses. You can make the beer, you can transport the beer, or you can serve the beer. With taxes and age limits, the bill's findings are a history lesson. Cannabis was legal until 1937, then banned partly to target minorities, despite the American Medical Association saying we have no evidence of anything of what you're talking about. See Dr. Woodward for more on that. I think we did a video about it like 3 years ago.
Wow.
Now, 38 states and DC have medical cannabis. 24 have adult use, and the U.S. even held a patent on medical cannabis since 2001. But Schedule 1 status blocks research, and people are still getting arrested while the feds cash in on the IRC 280E taxes. The fact-finding from the bill is a mess, but the Prepare Act wants to clean it up. And what does it do? It's basically a blueprint for the future, or at least it's a planning commission for what the future's blueprint would be. If Congress follows the commission's plan, we could see a national cannabis market with consistent rules, social justice reforms like expungement, and more research for patients with pain, PTSD, or cancer.
Hey, Matt.
It's not about legalizing it tomorrow. It's about being ready when prohibition fails, which...
In Oregon, and I think in California, if you're flying in state, it is legal. It depends on the airport. It just depends on the airport. SFO has different rules than LAX has different. And if I were someone who was here on a visa or, you know, I don't know. Until it's federally legal, I'm not I'm not that hard up that I need to fly with it within a legal state. Definitely not across state lines. You know, maybe from like LA to SFO or something like that, but I wouldn't do SF to New York. That would, or vice versa. I don't know. I'm not trying to get held up by TSA for weed. And I have been before. So, for chocolates. In which case I offered it to them. Because I figured that if they said yes to eating the chocolate, by the time it hit them, I'd be gone. But they said no. So, okay. So, hi, Matt.
Which feels inevitable with the public support and states leading the charge. But what do you think? Will it pass? This one's trickier. This is way less controversial than the States Act 2.0 because there is no outright legalization. It's just a bill saying let's study it and not change any law. So it's very low risk. It has bipartisan sponsors like Jeffries, and that kind of gives it street cred. The Democratic's leader is behind it.
It was in my carry-on
and it's cheaper than most reform bills because there's no big budget fights.
There's a lot
You're
of
not
chocolate.
actually creating anything except for a commission. And Congress loves to kick the can down the road, also accomplishes that. And the Senate has stalled similar ideas with bigger fish to fry like budgets and elections and taxes. But it's low stakes. And so maybe it has a decent shot compared to the States Act. Maybe like 30%. I still don't think it's that high. It's like betting on a sunny day in Seattle. Yeah, of course, it's totally possible, but don't pack the sunscreen just yet. And now let's get to the big picture. These bills show Congress finally waking up to cannabis reform. States 2.0 lets states and tribes run the show according to their rules. It cuts taxes and opens interstate trade, tackling today's problems. But it doesn't include any tax. It's only a 15-page bill. Maybe that'll come later.
Yeah,
and the Prepare Act plans for tomorrow with steps shaping a fair, safe federal system. Together, they could definitely shrink the illicit market, especially the States Act, and help businesses like ours fix the damage from decades of bad policy. However, EC's track record on legalizing it is brutal to say the least. Good ideas die in the Senate or get lost in committee. The DOJ's Schedule 3 push and public pressure give this a little bit, but look how that's been derailed. And therefore, that's my take. States Act 2.0, practical, bold, tougher odds, prepares more of a wishy-washy, doesn't really do anything of a bill, so maybe it has more of a chance. If I had a bet, I'd say none of them are going to pass. Maybe Prepare.
All of these are AI, these videos. I don't love that.
It's like hoping our dispensary gets a federal tax break by Christmas. Like, I don't think it's going to be Schedule 3 by Christmas. Still, as a lawyer and a business owner, I am rooting for these bills. These bills could change lives from patients to entrepreneurs and communities hit by the drug war. All right, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Are these bills our ticket to freedom or just more Washington BS? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
What do you think? Hey, Brian, there you go. There you go. So maybe that means something. Okay, so let's stay on track, you guys. Let's stay on track. All right. We're going to look at banking challenges, which I kind of talked about, and taxation. Despite being legal at the state level, cannabis businesses face significant banking challenges due to federal laws, due to the fact that the banks are federally insured. Okay? So they don't want to risk their federal insurance by working with cannabis brands. So there you go. Cannabis companies. I want to look up. Yeah, he's good. I'm subscribed. I subscribe to him. Very interesting. This is new, but I don't know if I want to watch this person. Oh, my bank. Let's see what this says. Oh, that's 2024. I wanted something sooner. Huh, let's watch this. I wonder if this is still happening.
Today on Forbes, meet the fintech startup powering the
this?
cannabis industry. In February 2016, Kevin Hart, the former CEO of Apple computer repair outfit TechServe, found himself standing inside an Oakland, California vault filled with many millions of dollars in cash. The vault belonged to one of the country's first medical marijuana dispensaries, Harborside, and the cash, derived from state legal medical marijuana sales, was nonetheless considered illegal drug money under federal law.
Right.
Hart, who is now the 65-year-old co-founder and CEO of Florida-based cannabis banking compliance company, GreenCheck, was there to help Harborside build a payment processing system. Hart, who is not related to the famous comedian, says, quote, "It's a big vault. It made the scene in Breaking Bad look like I knocked over my granddaughter's piggy bank. That's how much money was there." Hart turned to his host at the bank, the legendary California cannabis activist and entrepreneur, Dress Wedding, who founded Harborside in 2006 with Steve D'Angelo, and asked why the hell they kept so much money around. Wedding explained that the dispensary could not get a bank account because marijuana was still illegal at the federal level.
Right.
That is when Hart realized that Harborside and other state legal cannabis companies had a huge problem. They had nearly no access to America's mainstream financial system. Even though marijuana is legal in 38 states, 25 of which allow for recreational sales to adults 21 and older, the drug is still illegal under federal law. This means that most banks and payment processors have policies forbidding them to work with pot providers. And most payment processors, including the big ones like Visa and MasterCard, similarly do not allow cannabis transactions on their networks, which has forced the industry to conduct most of its sales, about 75%, in cash. For an industry that is expected to generate nearly $35 billion in sales this year, according to cannabis data firm BDSA, that means billions of dollars are transacted the old-fashioned way with paper currency.
Not so
Hart
much
says,
anymore.
quote,
They found a way
"That was a
around it."
thunderbolt moment for me. That was it. I was on a mission to solve this problem. I realized that it was a data problem, not a money problem." On the flight home to Connecticut, Hart took out his notebook and started mapping out how state-licensed cannabis companies and banks, two highly regulated industries, could work together. And for the next 3 years, he worked with 3 of his co-founders, Paul Dunford, John Gadea, and Michael Kennedy, to develop a compliance software product that could convince banks to work with state-licensed but federally illegal cannabis companies by proving every dollar and every product was made and sold according to state law.
Wow.
The result is GreenCheck software, which plugs into a dispensary's payment operating system and aggregates inventory, purchase orders, and sales to ensure cannabis companies are following hundreds of rules and regulations.
Ugh.
In doing so, it collects a lot of financial data. The software then feeds that information to banks to make sure financial institutions do not break anti-money laundering rules or run afoul of the Bank Secrecy Act by doing business with a federally illegal business. Every month, GreenCheck's compliance software verifies the legitimacy of roughly $1 billion in cannabis sales across the country, meaning it processes about 40% of the U.S.'s $30 billion in 2023 annual sales legal marijuana market. It has sold its software to more than 150 financial institutions to help more than 11,000 cannabis companies, from retailers to growers and manufacturers, get and maintain a bank account. The banks, which are looking to get in on the ground floor of a growing industry, pay about $5,000 a month. Cannabis companies get the software for free. It's not a lot of money for GreenCheck. The company booked $8.3 million in revenues last year and is looking at around $12 million this year.
But what are they doing?
Since 2019, they raised $19 million at a $90 million valuation from the likes of Mendon Venture Partners, Flatiron Venture Partners, and Fenway Summer Ventures. For full coverage, check out Will Yakowitz's piece on Forbes.com.
Sorry, but like, what do? They just like, they found some loop-de-loop, there's some kind of go-between. Like, oh, banks, you don't deal with the cannabis businesses. We'll deal with them. But you give us $5,000 a month to deal with them. And we'll take on the liability, I guess, of operating with the cannabis industry. That's so funny. Anyway. Sorry. Let's look this up. All right, we're going to watch this unless this guy is annoying. So let's see.
Hey everyone, welcome into our latest Trade in Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and today we're diving into some major development this week in the cannabis industry that grabbed everyone's attention. President Donald Trump is reportedly lobbying Congress to pass marijuana banking legislation. Hallelujah. Yes, whether you believe that or not, Trump is indeed pushing for the Secure and Fair Enforcement Regulation, otherwise known as the Safer Banking Act, to finally make its way through Congress. And oh, what a game changer this would be. So let's unpack what this means for cannabis businesses, investors, and really the broader market. First, let's talk about the Safer Banking Act. Like I've mentioned in a few podcasts before, this legislation aims to give legal cannabis businesses access to the U.S. banking system. Right now, many of these businesses are forced to operate in cash because federal law prevents banks from working with them. Yes, there is some banking that's already taking place within the industry, but with this bill passing, this would open up the doors tremendously. Because of this, this creates security risks, limits growth, and makes it harder for these companies to scale. Versions of this bill and its predecessor, the Safe Banking Act, they've passed the House multiple times, but they've consistently stalled in the Senate. Something we're very familiar with. But now with President Trump reportedly lobbying Congress, there's renewed hope that this could finally change. According to news out of Washington, President Trump has been in discussions with lawmakers this week, urging them to move forward with the Safer Banking Act. This isn't entirely surprising, knowing that Trump has shown support for marijuana reform in the past. Back last fall in 2024, on his Truth Social post, he backed a Florida ballot initiative to legalize adult use marijuana, though ultimately it failed. He's also expressed interest in rescheduling marijuana to a Schedule III drug, which would open the door for more medical research and regulatory changes. With the 2026 midterms on the horizon, Trump's push could be a strategic move to appeal to voters who support cannabis reform. It's a smart idea. So now that we know all this, what needs to happen for this bill to pass? First, the Safer Banking Act must clear the Senate Banking Committee, where it's faced resistance in the past. Who comes to mind? Senator Tim Scott. In addition to him, key senators will need to be convinced that this legislation is not just about cannabis, but it's also about public safety, economic growth, and fairness for state-authorized businesses. From there, it would need to pass a full Senate vote, which requires bipartisan support. This is where Trump's lobbying efforts could make a big difference, and I mean big. If he can sway Republican senators to back the bill, it has a much better chance of passing. Well, of course it does. Then from there, the bill would need to be reconciled with the House version before heading to the president's desk for signature. So now let's talk about what this could mean for the cannabis industry if the Safer Banking Act does indeed pass, because as I said earlier, it would be a game changer. Multi-state operators like Ascend Wellness, Cureleaf, Cresco Labs, Green Thumb Industries, TrueLeaf, Air Wellness, Verano Holdings, MaryMed, and Jushi Holdings. These are companies that would finally have access to traditional banking services among many other companies. This would lower their operating costs, improve cash flow management, and make it easier to secure loans for expansion. Cannabis ETFs like Advisor Shares, Pure Cannabis ETF YOLO, and MSOS, along with Tim Seymour's from Seymour Asset Management and his ETF CNBS, they would all see a boost in investor confidence as it grows. Share prices across the sector could rally significantly, as we've already seen multi-state operators trading higher on the news of Trump's lobbying efforts. We did see a sell-off towards the end of last week, but let's not face it, some of these companies are up over 30% at one point last week. So for cannabis investors, this is a pivotal moment. The passage of the Safer Banking Act would signal a shift in federal policy, potentially paving the way for broader reforms like legalization and rescheduling. It would also attract institutional investors who have been hesitant to enter the space due to regulatory uncertainty. So really, in short, this legislation could unlock billions of dollars in capital and drive long-term growth in the cannabis industry, something that many of us who have been following this industry have been here this long. So let's find out what's going to happen, and let's hope some momentum builds, because there you...
Okay, that's enough of this guy. Gentlemen, just want to say something, gentlemen. Don't ever do this look, okay? Like, where is he? That he needs to be wearing some sort of down. The reason why he's doing that is because his jacket is too boxy on his tiny body. And so he wants to make himself look like bigger and broader. So he's wearing like a down jacket underneath this jacket. I don't know. Maybe he's somewhere really fucking cold, but it looks like he's inside to me. So anyway, we're going to switch topics and go to... Okay.
Hi, I'm Richard Tell.
I'm going to announce this in the group chat, but I just want to announce it here. Club Sesh, Kitchen Sesh is going to be Sunday, okay? Not Saturday. I will make an announcement, but it's going to be Sunday at 1:20 p.m., okay? Same as usual, 1:20 Pacific, but Sunday, not Saturday, because I have to do something Saturday. I ordered the cotton candy machine. We are gonna, and I ordered the floss sugar. We are gonna try to make weed cotton candy.
I'm a professor of food engineering here at the University of Wisconsin.
Let's watch some videos
what
so
we're
I
gonna do here
don't
today
fuck up.
is make some cotton candy. So to make cotton candy, we're going to start with sugar. This is the Tutti Frutti flavor of cotton candy sugar. And I'll pour it into a beaker here so you can see what it looks like. But it's basically just granulated sugar with some colors and flavors on the outside of those sugar crystals. What we're going to do is pour this sugar crystals into the center of a spinning device. So this is a cotton candy machine. And inside here are heating elements, similar to a toaster coil. That heating element, once I turn it on, is going to warm this sugar up above its melting point. So it's going to heat it above 190 degrees centigrade and turn it into a liquid. And then there's holes on the outside of this spinning device, and the liquid inside here is going to be spun out through those holes by centrifugal force. It's going to cool down to room temperature really, really quickly, and in doing so, it's going to form into a glass. Okay, I'm going to take this cotton candy sugar and pour it into the spinning device, and now I'm going to turn the motor on.
Why is there a laugh track?
Once the heater does its job and melts the sugar, then it's going to spread that liquid candy out into the cotton candy shape here. So you can see the threads are starting to form as those sugar strands are being sent out through that disc shape. You can see them being collected here on the outside to collect a cone of cotton candy.
Science. I got really distracted by that. Okay, let's watch more cotton.
Today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. In today's video, we're going to explore whether...
Go ahead and click that link in the description.
Don't sneak these things in. We're watching something about... I'm going to do the turn tincture, right? From my cookbook. If you haven't got my cookbook yet, you should get it. I'm sure we can find a way, Fraggle Rock, to put Pop Rocks into the cotton candy. Anyway, so we're gonna do a turn tincture, then we're gonna pour that. We're going to do the technique that I do for the stone sugar, right? And we're going to pour it onto the stone sugar. What is this? That's weird. And then we're going to what's that pretty bonbon? We're going to toss that, you know, like you take the tincture and you put it into the sugar and then you mix it all up, and then I don't even know if we should bake it, but I think we will a little bit to try and get some of the moisture off before we put it into the cotton candy machine. It's gonna be wild. So that'll be on Sunday. Oh shit. No, Siri, I'm not talking about you. Okay, so that'll be Sunday. See, Matt says it's the best cookbook out, hands down. If you haven't left me a review yet, please do on Amazon. It really, really helps. So many amazing reviews. We're almost at 50. So if we can get it to 50 5-star reviews. Anyway, so Bear, that's what we're doing Sunday. We'll do cotton candy. Let's see what else these people are doing with this cotton candy. Catch up, man. Welcome.
I'm going to do a quick review of the Giles and Posner candy floss maker. A bit of a technique to how to get it going. You won't be able to hear a lot once it starts up because it's quite noisy.
You
We have
know,
already
that's
warmed the
enough.
machine up for 3 minutes.
You don't know
So
me.
make a start. First of all, make sure you get the
Real
right amount
bitch.
of candy floss sugar in the middle. Don't mess it around because it will literally end up going everywhere. It goes in the centre there. We'll turn it on. Like I say, you won't be able to hear anything I'm
Send a
saying.
super
You'll be able to
chat
come in and have a look
if
at
you
the
really
technique
want to show me
for
you love
making
me.
wonderful candy floss.
$130. So I'm so serious. Please send me super chat because this is going to be a lot of money. There's a little button next to the chat that's got a $sign on it, and you can literally send me money, or you can Venmo at the Edibles Club if you want to be more direct about it. But this is happening on Sunday. I bought a cotton candy machine, and yeah. If you want to support my fucking... This is taking a long time. Thanks, Pete. Everything I ever wanted to do. Probably millions of dollars, my friend. Millions of dollars.
And there you go. All we need to find
But the cotton candy machine was $130. There you go.
out is a willing volunteer to munch their way
He
through
did a
it.
great job.
Have fun
I liked
making your
it.
candy
Good
floss.
job, man. I liked that. Beginner's Guide to Cotton Candy. I thought that was cute. Okay, wait. This one says there's no machine needed, but I already got the machine, but that's okay.
Here's how you can make cotton candy.
And you don't even need a cotton candy machine. All you need are 2 ingredients and some space to make a bit of a mess. Sugar and water will go into a saucepan, and you want to simmer this on medium-high heat until it turns into a caramel. Now dip 2 forks into the caramel and quickly flick this over a bowl. And notice how it makes these sugar strings.
Who came up with this?
$1 billion. Oh, shit, Bonbon says a bill. Oh. Bonbon, can you chill out? Just a delivery, don't worry. She's so loud. No, I already bought a cotton candy machine for my but you asked me how much money do you need to do everything you ever wanted with your brand. My brand is Marigold Sweets. Marigold, those machines are not $130. Those machines are thousands of dollars. And so that's why I'm like a little more complicated, because I want to do all sorts of things with Marigold, but it's going to take me a minute. I'm working on it.
If you don't have a cotton candy machine,
never
this is what you gotta
stop.
do. Now, I highly recommend you cover up things you don't want to get dirty, or even do it outside or in a kitchen you don't really care about. After it's done, you can just fold it up, and there you go. You have your homemade cotton candy.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool technique. Okay, let's watch this one too. Why not? Mine's
Hi,
not
this is
this
Peter,
fancy.
and I'm going to demonstrate our cotton candy machine. When you receive your unit, you receive this bowl, the actual unit, and a little bag full of accessories, which includes a little scooper for your the sugar that you're going to go ahead and insert into the machine. Before you use your machine, make sure that you wipe down and clean your bowl.
Jaden, it is Primal. It's very
if
polished.
you look on the bottom of the bowl, there's actually little brackets right here that are held on with little
I don't know,
clamps
Matt, surprised
on
me.
the actual unit itself. So once you go ahead and put this in on top, center it, carefully center your unit, and clamp down your unit. Go ahead and get a look here.
Yes, it's going to be infused cotton candy. This guy is taking way too long to put this on.
Once it's secure, what you need is
It'll be infused.
A little bit of cotton candy sugar.
Hi, baby.
And item to go ahead and catch the cotton candy. For this demonstration, I could use a scooper, but to make it easier, I'm just going to go ahead and pour the sugar directly into this unit right here. So,
Not online from a random person in my comments. No, I'm not looking for investors like that.
there we go.
In
Just puts a
which
little bit on the side. I'm
I
gonna
have many
pick that up.
businesses.
And once you do that, make sure that when you turn on the unit, there's a little on and off switch here in the front.
That's what I'm saying, JL. It's like enough of this blah, 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 blah. Throw down, man. If you really put your money where your mouth is, mister. You can invest in the Edibles Club. All my members become a producer. Be a producer for the year. I only have one producer for the year, Madam Dram. Happy to have another one. Are you even a member of my Patreon, the Edibles Club? Be a producer.
In the front, right here, and this actually controls the voltage going down in
I need 40K.
which heats up the unit.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you
how
turn
much
this
money
on,
do you need?
the little metal piece on top will start spinning, and you want to make sure you look away because some of the sugar might fly back at you. So go ahead and turn this on, and as you see, it starts spinning.
I'm going to ask you, Reverend Minty Fresh, that's funny. It's in my cookbook. Do you have my cookbook? If you don't have my cookbook yet, you should get my cookbook because it teaches you how to make tincture, and it teaches you how to make sugar, and it teaches you how to make butter, and it teaches you how to make all the things. So we're going to do my technique from the cookbook and see if it'll work with floss sugar, which I'm pretty sure it will. And then we're going to make hot candy.
And if you look in the front, you want to go ahead and turn this on all the way. Once you turn it all the way, you'll see that it goes to about 110 volts. You want to keep it at this point until you start seeing string coming out of the unit. However, once you start seeing string coming out of the unit, you want to drop it back down, readjust the knob right here, and make it go to 90. So make it go to 90, like about there.
Why?
And that's when you run it at that unit. If you turn off the power, the unit will stop spinning. However, If this knob is in this position, it will keep the cotton candy melted down. So you can go ahead and turn the unit on and continue
so you're
making.
heating it up, and then you want to cool
candy.
it down.
So it makes it a little bit easier to control.
Yeah. That's cool. We're going to find out, you guys. It's going to be fun. Sunday, this is happening.
So right now I'm going to go ahead and bump it back up to 110.
1 second, okay? What are you doing? Oh, it's my printer. That was creepy. My printer just started printing. Oh my God. You guys, sorry about that.
And let the unit warm up. Be careful, this is very dangerous. Make sure no kids around this. Make sure that when you do use it, that an adult uses it, or use it with adult supervision. If you hover your hand over the unit, you can
start shooting more content that I want to make, so we don't have to rely on sponsors. You know, like going to other countries other than Thailand and seeing what's happening with the edibles there. But, you know, it takes people taking the leap and joining the club and buying the book and doing all of those things. So I'm going to keep going.
But since this unit, it's very thick, it takes several minutes for it to actually heat up until you start seeing the string come out.
Breaker, downer, all of these things. And it's supported by the club. That's it. It's called Patreon. It's like patrons. It's like artists, how they have patrons. That's what is happening here. And it's cool. And you can be a part of it or you cannot. And that's up to you. No one's pushing you or pressuring you or forcing you. This is all free for now. So, edible enjoyer, definitely not a supermodel.
Your technique down.
Just the Hair by Danny Moon. All right, it's happening.
You could actually see the cotton candy come out. I'm just spinning the cone as I go ahead and wrap the string around the actual unit. And I'm going to use the side of the wall to actually round off the cotton candy, make it nice and round. Be careful not to make it too big.
Whoa. He's pretty good.
And that's one cotton candy unit right there.
I'm gonna eat
pull
it.
this off. Continue making another one.
That one's better.
So I'll hold it at an angle, get the basic structure of the ball down, round it off.
It's good.
Oops.
Wow.
Be careful when you're making this.
He's struggling a little bit with this one. Wow.
This is great for parties, fundraising. This is a good unit overall to have around. Once you're done, go ahead and make sure you shut off your machine. And turn off the temperature. See? made.
That looks so fun.
2 cotton candies right here.
The first one looks better.
When you do clean this unit, make sure that you go ahead and detach the bowl and take it outside and rinse it off. However, this unit remains really hot.
For a while.
The center unit. So make sure you unplug the unit, you let it cool off, and then use a wet napkin and just wipe the inside of it out. And then it's ready for storage.
I don't see I was not doing the live chat. So I was doing the hot chat.
So once this unit is running.
Okay, so that was really cool. That's what we're going to do on Sunday. All right, you guys. I'm really stoned and I'm really tired. And I think I'm going to call it a night. We've been going for a while this evening. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Let me round this out this evening. I know what we're doing on Sunday. I feel pretty determined, and I just want to make sure we get in some stuff about how to support me if you want to support me. Saturday was fun with the meatballs. It was really nice to be at my friend's spot. It was fun. This is my cookbook, okay? How to eat weed and have a good time. If you don't know about it, let me tell you about it, okay? Before we go, one more time, I'm going to tell you. That is the main link right there. If you want a signed copy, you can get one from Now Serving LA. They have signed editions. It is an excellent cookbook. I did a bunch of science and lab testing to understand how long it takes to do stuff, like infuse butter, so you don't waste your time. Duh, isn't that so much fun? You can also, if you want to hang out more, hey, Winslow's still here. If you want to hang out more and you want to support me and you want to support Winslow and the club and all of this content, please join the Edibles Club. I'm about to run our credits of the club members. You know, these are all the people who support what I do and really put their money where their mouth is. And, you know, it's nice to have that kind of love from the community. It all started during the pandemic, and it's really grown from there. And I feel so fortunate to have such an awesome community of people. So I'm gonna pack a bowl and hit this bong one more time on the way out, and just know how much, you know, I love my club members. Oops, you got my armpit there. I've got my outro. I love you guys. Petra's one of them. Just know I'm packing this bowl, and I'm gonna hit it real quick. 1 second. Sorry, I love you guys. Thank you to my club members. I love you. Have a good night, everyone.